outside of our own daily routine and remind ourselves of the struggle that those less fortunate in society face every day. But this year, it's also a time of increasing terror and attacks against our Muslim brothers and sisters across this country and around the world. Anti Muslim hate is an epidemic, proportion according to the United Nations. There has been nearly 30% increase in hate and bias incidents against Muslims since 2020, according to the Council on American Islamic Relations. 2 summers ago, we witnessed a deadly anti-Muslim attack that wiped out 3 generations of a Muslim family in Canada. 4 years ago, nearly to the day, a far-right white supremacist gunman walked into 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, and murdered over 50 worshippers just for their faith. It was just part of the rise. It was just part of the rise of white supremacy and right-wing violence globally. Islamophobia is an integral part to the so-called Great Replacement conspiracy theory and rhetoric depicting immigrants and non-whites as invasion. The same Great Replacement theory espoused by the Christchurch terrorists has been used to justify shootings at synagogues in Pittsburgh, a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, and a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. But Islamophobia is not confined to mass shootings. There has been a staggering rise in incidents of violence, systematic Islamophobia by governments worldwide. Whether it is atrocities being committed against the Uyghurs in China or the genocide of the Rohingya in Burma, the crackdowns on Muslim population in India and Sri Lanka, the scapegoating of Muslim refugees and other Muslims in Hungary and Poland and here in the United States. The problem of Islamophobia is coordinated and global, and our response to it must be even stronger. That's why I'm proud to lead my colleagues in condemning the rise in Islamophobia and bigotry in all forms and affirming the rights of religious minorities in the United States and around the world. Now I would like to introduce Max Ross, one of our youngest and brightest stars here.
Hello, everybody. Ramadan Mubarak. It's an honor to be here in solidarity and in recognition of the rise of Islamophobia that's going around the country, especially in my home state of Florida. And it's no surprise as to why this is happening. We see that there is a far-right, extreme branch of our government that is continuing to fuel hate in this country. And we've seen a rise in hate crimes in Central Florida, in my district, in Orlando, in Florida 10, and across this entire country. And so it's up to us as members of Congress and leaders in this country to not just, be here in solidarity, but also recommit ourselves every day to the fight against Islamophobia from Florida to Minnesota and to the ends of the earth. And for me, I'm here in solidarity with my colleagues, with all of my Muslim brothers, sisters, and siblings in Central Florida. And also to recommit myself to the fight that is extremely important. And so, here in solidarity, thank you so much.
Thanks, Max. We will now hear from Robert McCall, Director of Government Affairs Department, Council on American Islamic Relations.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Greetings and peace, good morning, and most importantly, Ramadan Mubarak. Again, my name is Robert McCaw. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Council on American Islamic Relations. It's with a heavy heart that CARE welcomes the introduction of Congresswoman Omar's U.S. House resolution marking the 4th anniversary of the tragic massacre at 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand. That cowardly attack, carried out by a white supremacist, anti-Muslim bigot, claimed the lives of 51 innocent Muslim worshippers who were attending Friday prayers during Jummah 4 years ago. Our thoughts and prayers continue to go out to the victims, their families, and the loved ones who continue to mourn their loss. May Allah grant them paradise for those who were killed, and may He comfort their families. As Congresswoman said, Congresswoman Omar said, this reprehensive act of violence was driven by the extremist ideologies of white supremacy, Islamophobia, and the so-called Great Replacement theory. Since that attack, the United States has been subjected to additional white supremacist attacks that have targeted Jewish, African, Hispanic, and Asian Americans. Too many lives have been lost in the name of hate. This congressional resolution recognizes that threat posed by the rising global Islamophobia, the threat it poses to American Muslims and Muslims around the world in countries where they are facing not only discrimination but genocide, like in China and Burma. It's incredibly important that Congress leads the way in rejecting these hateful and dangerous ideologies, and CARE calls on both sides of the aisles to co-sponsor and adopt this very important resolution. So in conclusion, as we remember the lives lost in Christchurch, we must continue to work towards a world where everyone is treated with humanity and dignity, regardless of their faith, their ethnicity, or their background. So thank you.
And now we will hear from Kareem Shara, Executive Vice President of Human Rights First.
Good morning. Thank you, Congresswoman Omar, Congresswoman Tlaib, for your continued leadership and for always championing the cause of human rights. Human Rights First has spent over 40 years promoting and defending those most vulnerable among us. We are here today calling on all members of this U.S. Congress to support and co-sponsor this resolution and to loudly speak up and act against the mainstreaming of anti-democratic, far-right, white supremacist extremism. This is why, as a leading human rights organization, Human Rights First, last year launched our extremism program with top experts from across the government, academia, including Capitol Hill, and the advocacy sector. When America's policies and actions no longer match its values, when hate and extremism are normalized, and when our democratic processes are threatened, our global legitimacy is undermined, along with our ability to protect the most vulnerable worldwide. The ideology driving the anti-democratic, far-right extremist movement in the United States has become increasingly visible, and unfortunately, no place is immune, including right here in Congress. This movement is no longer a fringe element of our society. It is both mainstream and it is a broad-based movement. Words matter. Public figures, including elected officials, have a responsibility to be mindful of this threat and of the impacts of their words on those who choose to act violently. Today, we see and hear public figures, including right here in Congress, repeat and promote the same lies, including the so-called Great Replacement theory, targeting asylees and refugees, faith, racial, and other minorities. They provide ammunition to those who choose to act violently based on their words. Christchurch, Poway, El Paso, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Charleston, Charlottesville. The list goes on. And those who repeat and promote the so-called Great Replacement theory are directly responsible. Mitigating this existential threat to our democracy requires an approach that includes addressing the violent and most visible components of the movement. And today we are here doing so in support of Congresswoman Omar's resolution, as well as the mainstream networks that build support for this movement. That's where we all come in. Regardless of our political leanings or position on specific policies, we are all Americans who believe in the promise of this great nation and the values it has always aspired to achieve, but often falls short of attaining. I invite you to join us in protecting our democracy against this most serious of threats. Thank you again, Congresswoman Omar and Congresswoman Tlaib, for your trailblazing efforts on this most important of issues. And we look forward to partnering with you as we move forward.
Now to close us out, my sister in service, Rashida Tlaib of Michigan.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much to my colleagues for being here in solidarity, and of course the continued courageous advocacy of my good colleague, my sister Ilhan Omar, who continues to inspire me to continue to speak. You all know March 15th, 2019, a white supremacist extremist opened fire to 2 mosques in New Zealand. It shook my community. The 12th Congressional District houses so many American Muslims, all different backgrounds. And to see that happen, especially when we have so many mosques and Muslim centers and cultural centers throughout my district, it really did shake our community. We mourned for days just watching the imagery and thinking, how can this happen? But we can say that the same thing of the attacks on many other faith institutions around our country here. You all know the shooter was armed with multi-semi-automatic rifles and targeted our Muslim brothers and sisters as they prayed. 4 years later, we remember and honor the 51 beautiful lives, Allah yarhamhum, that were stolen in horrific Christchurch mosque attacks. My heart still breaks for the families who are still living through the trauma of losing a loved one in such horrifying mass shooting. But I am proud that our country, with the leadership of Congresswoman Omar, with her resolution, we can honor them and we can uplift them in mourning the loss of many again that were impacted, as well as the 40 other survivors who were injured in that massacre. We must continue, obviously, to reject Islamophobia, extremism, hateful rhetoric, and any policies that seek to divide us based on our religion, ethnicity, race, or who we love. For myself, I know, as a mother of 2 Muslim boys in our country, I continue to struggle how I can continue to protect them. But I still remember to this day my beautiful young boy, my son, who's now 17, but at the age of probably 11 years old, or between 10 and 11, he's indicated that maybe he should hide his faith from others because of all the Islamophobic increases in the rhetoric, but also just the continued kind of exposure that he hears of just folks truly not understanding this peaceful faith. So it is an honor to be able to stand with Ilhan Omar and many colleagues in doing this resolution. We all know that we have so much more work to do to combat racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, and hateful policies that fuel it. One thing a Black pastor in Detroit always taught me is that, our country is not really divided, we're disconnected. This is how we can connect together, and many of those that, again, walk into their churches, their synagogues, their temples, their mosques, that we can join in together in solidarity and say we have to stop it. Everyone should feel safe in those institutions. And again, this is how we can reject violent extremism, is to recognize it, to honor those that did not live, and those that continue to be protected, continue to be impacted by it. But with that, again, I cannot thank enough many of the colleagues that will join this effort. It is really, again, very, very important. The 12th Congressional District, to this day, still, what we did to many of our mosques and everything, and in response to that, again, it shook us, and we thought we could be next. And so, again, it is important to continue to recognize, but also work together in trying to combat this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashida. It is true, no one should be afraid for their lives as they go to worship. It is really important for us to talk about that. On a side note, I want to say Rashida and I did not coordinate our purple scarves, but I am really grateful to my colleagues, the dozens of organizations that have supported the resolution, including Human Rights First and CARE, and just really grateful for the solidarity that has been shown. That will take a few questions before it starts raining.
Yes, the rise of Islamophobia, could that be equated with the rise in anti-Semitism? And do you all denounce that rise? Because there seems to be a lot more crimes committed against the Jewish faith And also there's a rise in anti-Israel sentiment. Can you speak to that?
Certainly, we have Jan Schakowsky and I have talked about extensively how it's two sides of the same coin. The Great Replacement theory is certainly based on this fear of invasion. If you remember the Pittsburgh massacre, the Jewish community was targeted in their synagogue, accused of sponsoring refugees and for their advocacy in wanting to expand the diversity of our country and for carrying out their faith mission to be compassionate for those that are less fortunate. And so we continue to stand in solidarity together, which is why in the resolution we also call out the rise of anti-Semitism as well.
Yeah, and I think in my district especially, we've worked with so many incredible organizations because we know they're anti-Semitic, they're most likely Islamophobic, and that's one thing that brings all of our communities and faiths and diversity together, is the fact that we know that white supremacy is coming out of us.
Is it only white supremacy? Because I've spoken to a lot of individuals around the country, and a lot of the sentiment has come from either the Black community, Spanish community. I know it's more prevalent in the Caucasian.
Yeah, I can only speak on behalf of my community. The 12th Congressional District is incredibly diverse. We just talked about the rise of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, but also as we begin Ramadan, how we can protect each other, how we can lift each other. And so I can only speak from the 12th Congressional District. Again, folks around the country will try to divide us in this rhetoric, but we know
We're stronger together.
yeah, we're stronger together, and it's been an incredible experience and journey as we continue to work together to